This video is brought to you by Skillshare.
So if you've been watching the channel the last couple of videos, you'll know that right now I am on a mission to stash bust as many of my fabric scraps that aren't very usable as possible. So today, I just want to make some pillows. I've really been going in a biggest to smallest order with my scraps here. In the first video, we made actual garments. Then we went a step down in scrap size, and I did a little bit of patchwork in my most recent video. But now, as a consequence of basically all of the sewing that I've ever done on the channel, combined with all of the tiny little scraps that the last couple of weeks have produced, I have bags upon bags of teeny tiny little fabric scraps that I can't really piece together for quilting or patchwork. And the main way that I know how to use little scraps like this is to, where's the zipper? Use them as pillow stuffing. That's what's in this pillow, you get the idea. So the goal here today is basically stash busting once again in two separate ways. I am gonna make pillowcase pillow covers using some of the larger fabric scraps that I have lying around, and then I am going to stuff them with all of the unusable scraps, and I am going to try and use up all of those. So, what plushy goodness do we have on the menu today? I kind of have three main types of projects that I want to conquer in this video. First of all, just little throw pillows, cute little shapes with cool designs on them. Number two, whenever I'm sewing, much like many of us in this community, I like to assume gremlin posture, and I would like to make a pillow for my butt. As I've been perusing Pinterest for different project ideas, I found some cool cushions with pretty simple patterns. They don't seem terribly complicated to make, and they will use up quite a few of my scraps because of the rotund size that they got going on. And final project I'd like to get to in this video, I have this pillow that I've owned for a very long time at this point. It was, I believe, a Christmas gift from Shiloh one year. It is so very comfortable. Spider-Man does not, however, fit the aesthetic that I have going on in my living space. So I just want to make a pillowcase for this pillow to make it look a little bit more aesthetic. Literally something that I can just slip over it, wash easily. For that, I also want to experiment with some special little crafty things, but we will cross that bridge when we come to it. For now, we have a lot of pillows to make, so let's get started. So my basic understanding of how to make a cushion for my butt: make a giant circle, kind of like this, and then divide it up into various pizza slices, which you will then section off into fabric, and then so on. Have a lining in there for like structure, and then on the side there's going to be a piece that goes along the perimeter to give it dimension. I still have a lot of fabrics I could potentially use for this. Probably gonna use this again just because there is so much of it. It's good for block printing on, and I might get the block prints out a little bit later in this video. So let's see what we got in here that we can use for actual fabric.
2 days later.
Okay, I think I have a pretty good brood of fabrics here. I also have a bunch of pre-cut patches from my previous video that I can sew together and use for this and for the pillowcase I want to make later. So now we gotta measure out a good pizza diameter. I kind of did want it bigger than this. That's better.
So like I showed in my little diagram, I measured out a circle with a diameter of 36. That's a 18 radius there that I'm measuring out. And I got a decent circle shape by just fanning out my measuring tape like I usually do whenever I'm measuring out a circle skirt or something like that. And I only measured out one quadrant of that so I could just fold it over and get a mirrored shape on the other side.
Geometry.
And I also just folded it again to get my pizza slice eighths. And I really eyeballed the 16ths here, but it doesn't have to be perfect because I'm just gonna be using one of the 16ths as my pattern for all the other pieces.
I'm just trying to visualize, like, if I'm crafting on the ground, do I feel like this is an ample amount of cushion? You know, I feel like this is good. I also need to know the circumference of a circle with a radius of 18 inches. I'm gonna do a quick little rough measure, and then I'm gonna ask the Oracle, otherwise known as Google.com. 57 times 2. 113.1? We were pretty freaking close. Now I need to cut this pizza slice from all of that stuff.
Once my lining and side pieces were all cut out, I cut out all 32 of the pizza slices that I needed for this pattern, which predictably took a while, and you bet that I am going to complain about that. This was a very annoying experience.
Alright, I finally got all my pieces here cut out. I've got a lining for the top and bottom here that are big circles. I've got my big strip that is going to go around the entire thing, and then I have 16 individual pizza slices for each side side. Oh boy, this is gonna take forever. I think I was able to get some really good color combinations and pattern combinations from the fabrics that I have left over, which is really good. And these are pretty sizable pieces, so that is even more stash busting. Very happy about that.
To begin assembling my pizza color wheels, I laid out all of my pieces to figure out what order I wanted them in. I was trying to make sure I put kind of complementary colors next to each other and at least made it look, you know, somewhat thought out before I actually assembled it. But I definitely winged it on the sewing and assembly on these because I didn't feel like pinning. I didn't feel like lining a whole lot up. So I really freehanded all of these guys, just sewing the edges together, not worrying about it too much. And that of course means in the end, the centers of all the circles don't line up. But I knew that would happen with this chaotic method. So I have a solution for that later, don't worry. But I repeated that method on both pieces and they are giving Wheel of Fortune.
So now we are finally at the point of the video where this fella comes in. I want to make the pillowcase that I make for this a little bit fancier, a little bit more intricate, more like an art piece. I'm thinking I want to have one side kind of with a design on it, something really cool that's decorative that I can set out like on my couch. And on the other side, have something that's a little bit better for like putting my face on. So for the more decorative side, I would like to dip my toesies just a little bit more into the art of embroidery. You guys will know I've done like a little bit of that on this channel before. Not nearly enough to even consider myself to have like really done it before. I guess that video was even like a little bit more beading centric. I am very interested in learning a little bit more embroidery, and thankfully, to give me just a little bit more instruction, introduce me to a lot of different basic stitches I could use to make the design that I want to make on this, we have this video's lovely sponsor, Skillshare. For my embroidery instruction, I've been checking out a couple of different Skillshare classes for this. I have been checking out Danielle Clough's Painting with Thread, Modern Embroidery for Beginners. And then for more of that basic embroidery instruction, I've been checking out Kathleen Lyon's class, Modern Embroidery 101, Learn 15 Essential Hand Embroidery Stitches, and also Floor Geibel's class, Stitching Woodland Creatures 101, Exploring Texture in Hand Embroidery. Kathleen Lyon's Modern Embroidery 101 class has been really good for, again, introducing myself to some of the basic stitches, which I was not aware of before. I was kind of just sticking my needle in there and doing whatever. But actually learning those stitches and how they've been done for like probably centuries has been really helpful for designing the embroidery that I want to do on this pillow. For this design, I also want to go like very nature-inspired woodland creature vibes because that very much matches the rest of the home decor that I have. So getting a little bit more of that texture knowledge from the Stitching Woodland Creatures class has also been very helpful. But I've also been very interested in like a slightly more freeform style of embroidery, something a little bit more colorful, something a bit more, I dare say, eccentric. So Danielle Clough's class has been really cool for that, just to kind of see some of the techniques that go into that. Maybe start wrapping my head around them a little bit so that I can implement those in my work. But Skillshare doesn't just have embroidery or sewing classes. They have classes on basically every creative pursuit under the sun. Their classes are taught by world-class creatives, professional illustrators, renowned graphic designers, and successful entrepreneurs. And they have classes on basically all the categories that I tackle on my own channel here, like illustration, animation, sketchbooking, sewing, crochet, film, and design. The classes are really great for beginners and advanced students alike because they have a range of difficulty in their categories, so you can pick classes that actually suit your skill level. And when you take a class on Skillshare, you don't just take a class and then that's it. Most of them have a class project involved so that you can actually do the thing that you're taking a class for, and then you can actually share the results of that class project in the project gallery section and then receive feedback from your teacher, other students. You can check out what other students are up to and get inspired by them. So if you want to try out any of the classes or categories that I mentioned, or if you want to try out my class, I actually have a sketchbooking class on there that I made myself. You can actually do so for free because the first 500 people to join using my link in the description or the QR code here on screen will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Thank you so much as always to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Now back to the project. So for the body of my pillowcase, I'm just gonna do some patchwork again because I still have quite a few scraps left over from last week and need to use these guys up. We got some goodness left over in here, but I also, of course, am probably gonna do block printing again. So first step, of course, is to measure my pillow to get the actual dimensions that I need, and I think to use up my purple fabric, because I have so much of it, I'm going to do the kind of comfort side and the lining out of that, and then I will layer like my patchwork stuff on top of that. So I have quite a bit of piecing to do. I'm once again going for like Hal's bedroom core, you know? So I have been piecing together this pillowcase, which I didn't really record much of because it's like a little bit boring. It's just sewing together pieces and then like layering pieces on top of each other, sewing them with the zigzag stitch. So I did that mostly off camera. And this is where we are so far. So for my embroidery design, I decided to be super basic once again and do another Luna moth. And I also didn't buy new embroidery floss or yarn for this. I'm gonna try to just use what I have on hand, and I actually have colors that would work well for that. So for my design, I kind of just want to do, you know, one central open-winged Luna moth with some like nature designs around it, that sort of thing. See if I can maybe do some flowers, maybe some moss, experiment with like some different stitches. I'm not looking to go too crazy because I don't have that long to work on this, but hopefully I can still make it look pretty nice to go on my pillowcase. It's also super nice out this evening, so if I can kind of get the hang of things, I think I'm gonna try to do a little bit of outdoor yard embroidery. I was just unspooling some yarn for my embroidery when I looked down and, oh, butterfly wing. This makes me sad to find, but also treasure. We have a Mr. Kitty visitor. Let's get some lights on. Look at this little guy. Yeah, good boy. Oh my goodness. This little guy is the neighborhood stray, whom I have literally been trying to like either foster or like adopt out for literally I think 2 or 3 years at this point. But the trouble is that this little fella isn't neutered, so he wanders like crazy and he doesn't stick around for me to like grab him, try to rehome him. I haven't even been able to get him so I could like maybe neuter him. He's an elusive little guy, but he's been hanging out a little bit more often lately, so hopefully I think I might have some ideas on how to get him a more permanent home. But in the meantime, I've just been feeding and watering him when he shows up. And because he's kind of like an orange cat with this white on him, he looks like a toasted marshmallow, so I've been calling him Toast. Because he's so sweet, people do feed him. Think that I heard a neighbor try to adopt him. Then because of those things, he still wanders in search of the ladies. Anyways, he's a really sweet boy. I think he's appeared once on the channel before, like literally 2 years ago. We're gonna see if we can help him. Give us some purrs. Okay, little man, you want some food? There you go, bud.
With the company of my toasty companion, I did get a decent amount of embroidery done that night, mostly just the base of the moth overall, and I continued to work on it on and off over the next couple of days. I also managed to make a decent amount of progress during this D&D session.
You're doing your dog's fire attack right now.
Absolutely.
I got most of the celestial details done and added a little bit more detail to the wings as well. And then I finally finished the whole thing up during a super lengthy embroidery session, just chilling out on a Saturday, watching some ghosts. I feel like I added a lot more detail to this than I originally intended to, but I was just having too much fun with all the leaves and the florals. That painting with thread class helped me get some ideas on how to add more dimension to the moth itself. In the end, I know it's not perfect, it's a little lopsided and definitely rough around the edges, but I was really proud of what I was able to do with this, especially in just a couple of days of embroidery. I think it came out really cute. I'm planning on moth embroidery kind of being in the middle here, and hopefully that'll bring it together a little bit more. But in addition to that, I of course also would like to do some block prints. Alright friends, it is once again block printing time. I know the cicadas are going absolutely crazy in this entire video, sorry about that. I've gotten to a decent place with my fabrics here, and today I am going to block print on both sides of the cushion for my butt and also the pillowcase for my other pillow. I'm gonna leave it at that.
before I spiral and then explode. If you notice here, I also have a plastic bin lid instead of parchment paper because my parchment paper was getting just a little bit goopy on me last time. So this is experimental. I need to thrift a mirror so this process goes a little bit smoother, but I'm gonna try this out. So I am once again going to start with a yellow color. Yep, I think we're just gonna go for it. Cadmium yellow, put yellow ochre, mix them together. I'm kind of just gonna go crazy with the stamps today. It's kind of working. Shoot. I just went to get something from inside, and this little guy jump scared me with his crazed meowing. Just right outside the door. Screams, "Hey bud." Look at that plop. Anyways, now let's print the pillowcase. Sorry if time-lapse mode is a little disruptive. Someone really likes my tripod. I don't know if this whole time-lapse mode thing is gonna work. How am I supposed to keep the tripod stable under these conditions? How am I supposed to do that? You're a very good boy. Yeah.
2 seconds later.
Anyways, like I did in my previous video, once I was printing on all of the darker spots with my yellow ink, I washed off all of my blocks and my plastic lid thoroughly and switched to printing on all of the lighter spots with my black ink, which I had to be pretty careful about because I really did not have much black ink left. I really needed to get some more of this. But thankfully, in the end, I had just enough to finish up this tube and get all of my printing done. And in the end, by the way, I did decide to print on just one side of my cushion because it takes so long to do it, and I decided I didn't really care that much about it being reversible, but because this does take so long, my partner also helped me with this, which was very nice, very helpful, and I'm once again very pleased with how all of the block printing came out.
So guys, there is a little gecko trapped inside the screen of my window. Can you focus on the little guy? This happens from time to time. I really don't know how they get in here, but every once in a while I have to fish them out. How do you get the tiny dinosaur out of your screen? Well, I'm glad you asked. Get an old yogurt cup and a flat thing. Open the window. He's on the run. Oh, where'd he go? Oh, there he is. You gotta just capture him in your yogurt cup. And then you take this, slide it under your yogurt cup. We've captured a tiny dinosaur. And then you can finally put your tiny house dinosaurs outside where they belong. There he is. Goodbye, friend.
All the throw pillows I wanted to make, I actually did a lot of these earlier this month. I was going to include them in that first video, but there was just so much going on, and frankly, there still is. So to avoid me going insane with the amount of detail I recorded these in, please have a pillow lightning round. So I patterned a ton of different pillow shapes for this. Unfortunately, I did not get to all of these. I was getting a little bit ambitious, but I think I did manage to make my favorites out of the shapes. So making little throw pillows like this is thankfully very easy. For the simplest ones I have here, like this moon, you just cut your front and back out of your desired fabric, sew them up right sides together. For something curved like this, it's helpful to cut slits in the seam allowance to help relieve stress around the outside of the shape. For this one, once I flipped it right side out, I also did a little straight stitch around the edge to give it a cute little border. This gave me my general pierogi shape. Then I just used the hole I left open on the side to fill it with fabric scrap stuffing, and once I hand sewed up that hole, that gives you a cute little moon pillow. For my leaf pillows, I'm following the exact same steps for the most part, but on these I wanted to add a little bit of decorative stitching, kind of inspired by these pillows. So for that, I just grabbed a lighter color thread, set my machine to a zigzag stitch with a really narrow stitch length, and just freehand top stitched the shapes that I wanted on top of my pillows. This takes a while with a normal machine and it looks a little bit messy at first, but I stuck with it and I think the stitching ended up looking really cute on these pillows. Like I said, I finished these up the same way I did with the moon pillow, to relief cuts around any curves, stuffed them with scrap fabrics, and hand sewed up both of those holes. I'm very pleased with how both of these little guys came out, and I highly recommend this project. It's really not too difficult. Next, I started working on a pillow that I'm gonna finish up a little bit later in the video, but I wanted to make one to match the pillowcase that I'm working on. So for that, I cut some of this blue fabric into just a basic square shape, and I started doing a little bit of fabric piecing to make this cute sun design on the front of it. This is very similar patchwork to what I was doing earlier in the video, and I wasn't too concerned about making it look perfect or super clean. Like I said, more on this pillow a little bit later in the video. Next, it is time to be predictable. You know I had to make a mushroom pillow in this video, and making a pattern for something like this is actually easier than you think. It's literally just 2 circles. The top one is bigger than the bottom one. The bottom one also has a hole in the middle, and the stem is just a rectangle that is going to be given form by, once again, another circle at the bottom of that. Once I cut out my mushroom pattern pieces, I decided to add the iconic red mushroom design with some white puffy paint. I also added some ridges to the bottom of the mushroom and to the stem as well to give it a little bit more texture and interest. And whenever that was dry, I once again sewed the top and bottom right sides together and flipped it right side out. I was also a little smarter this time and sewed a zipper to the edge of the stem. That way I could finish assembling all of the pieces from the inside without leaving a hole to hand sew later, and I could still flip it right side out and add stuffing since I have a zipper. I once again stuffed my mushroom, and this is how my mushroom pillow came out.
So I still have way too much scrap fabric around. I don't know what to do with it. So my partner is over just hanging out right now, and I was like, hey, do you want a custom pillow? Do you want me to make you something? And he was like, you know what might be cool? Sword and shield pillow situation.
So I patterned out a sword and shield pillow set based on my partner's desired specifications and color scheme. This pattern is definitely a little bit more complicated because there's different colors involved, so you have to sew those together, but it's still just essentially a front side and a back side that you sew together.
You a little shy?
I once again wanted to add a little bit more detail to this, so I used the same method I used earlier on the leaves to sew a ridge down the center of the blade on both sides of the pillow. That came out looking like this, and my zipper method from before was wildly successful. Don't know why I wasn't doing that earlier. So I also sewed a zipper to the side of the sword blade. I felt like that was probably the best placement for it. And then it was time to assemble the sword handle. This was a lot of ironing and trying to make clean stitches. I was really trying to make sure those details looked nice. And I even sewed some scrap gold ribbon onto the handle to make it just a little bit fancy, because of course I did. And once both of the handles were all stitched up, I sewed them onto the main part of the blade. And then it was time to stitch those right sides together to finish up the sword. Once again, add relief cuts and flip it back right side out.
And this is just the most annoying part of doing this.
I figured about that. I know what my answer is.
Pickle burger?
You
What?
kind of sound like you want to go to Sonic and get
Oh,
a pickle
of course he
burger
does.
and a pickle shake.
Why would he be harping on it this much? I haven't thought about this since the last time we talked about it on Thursday.
This is the second time he's brought it up in like the last.
My friend requested a handle on it so you can actually hold it like a real shield, which is very cute. So I started by making a couple of little brown rectangular straps. I sewed those to the back panel of the shield, and for the front of the shield he wanted this classic contrast design. So I sewed those 4 pieces together, trying to be as clean as possible, and finally sewed the front panel to the back panel and flipped it back right side out. With both pieces done, it was time to add a ton of scrap stuffing, although I did mostly use polyfill in the sword because some of those edges were a little tricky to get into. And when you finish stuffing them, they look great. Okay, so I kind of messed up the alignment of the blade and the handle here. That is on me, and I'm gonna fix it. The shield does look really good though.
So I am now done with my embroidery, and I think it turned out really, really cute. I am quite happy with the result. It's a little shiny in this light. So originally the plan was for this embroidery to go on this pillowcase, of course, but now that I'm looking at everything, I just don't know if I love how that all looks together. It's mostly just the stark white of this is very high contrast compared to everything on here. Something I did think about doing was like coffee or tea staining this white to be more of like a beige or cream color so it matches this better. I also just don't know how that's going to interact with the embroidery floss. I would kind of prefer not to rock the boat with this because I did work pretty hard on it. I don't really want to mess this up or risk doing anything to it. So my thought right now is maybe put something else on the center of this and just make this its own individual little throw pillow. So after a little bit of thinking, I've determined these three are kind of a set, right? Kind of same color scheme, same vibes going on. I have a little bit of this yellow fabric left. I think that I'm just going to do a similar design that's on this pillow on the front of this one, just to give it more of a centerpiece so it matches these other two, and just kind of like unify them together and everything, because I think I'm gonna put them on my same red couch. I'll have this guy with them too, and I think all of those will end up looking pretty good together. And I'm gonna put this one on the daybed with the other green tones.
So I made an alternate patch with a sun shape out of a couple of different kinds of fabric. It's very similar to the one I have on my other blue pillow, but it's a slightly different shape. I also added a little iron-on star applique to the center of that, stitched those pieces together, and then finally stitched the entire thing onto the center of my pillowcase. While I was at it, I also finished up that other blue sun pillow. It just got some more of those star applique on it to match my main pillowcase. I also added some gold bias tape around the outside edge, and that once again got its own zipper and was sewn up right sides together the same way as the other ones, except this one got some gold edge binding and some tassels on all four corners. Once again, I stuffed it up, and this was the result. I also quickly assembled my little Luna moth embroidery pillow the same way. I just gave it a little bit more of a diamond shape than a square shape, and it came out so little and cute. But getting back to business, for my pillowcase, I wanted it to be an envelope style pillow, which means one side of the back overlaps over the other so you can actually get your main pillow core in there. So to do that, I measured the back panel so that I would have a lot more width on one side than the other. I pressed and sewed both sides down so that they would have nice clean edges, and then set them on top of my pillow, making sure the overlap was correct. And then I flipped everything over so that I could pin those pieces to be sewn right sides together so that everything again has clean edges. And then I flipped it back right side out, pressed it, and I wanted to add a little border to this so that my pillowcase would fit really tight over my pillow core, so I measured that out. I top stitched my border all the way around, and this created a perfect fit around my base pillow. I am absolutely thrilled with how this came out. It gives me weird nostalgia for my grandmother's house because she used to have a lot of quilted pillows like this, which I think is a really nice touch. Finally, it was time to get back to the Wheel of Fortune and finish that up. Fix my little center alignment problem. I decided to add some of these cushion buttons, but I decided to make them in a weird way. I just took some leftover craft foam that I had lying around, adding some fabric over the top of that, securing it in place with hot glue. That's right, this video is not free of hot glue. And then I hand sewed both those into place, trying my best to gather all of the main fabric edges to the little fabric stump on my button. I think it overall did the trick. Then it was time to actually assemble this baby. I pinned the top and the lining right sides together with the side piece, sewed that on, also making sure to reinforce it with a zigzag stitch. I pressed all of the edges to make sure that was nice and crisp, and then it was once again time to add another zipper. I added the zipper to the bottom edge so that it's not super visible and in your face, and when that was all installed, I pinned the bottom right sides together to the side piece and sewed that up, again making sure to reinforce it, and then I could flip it back right side out and begin the process of stuffing.
Okay, I am finally done sewing my cushion. I just need to stuff it, but I'm actually not entirely sure that I have enough scraps to stuff this with, so I'm just gonna kind of stick all this in here and hope for the best. And if I don't have enough, I'm gonna have to maybe improvise a little bit, at least for the purposes of this video.
So I stuffed all of that stuff into my pillow, and I was absolutely correct. I did not have enough, and I improvised as best as I could, but I definitely did not have enough stuffing to fill this as much as I wanted to.
This is my second time recording this because my microphone was not on the first time. Anyways, I definitely did not have enough stuffing for this. I have pretty much every fabric scrap or undesirable fabric in my possession inside this baby right now, and you can see it can go a ways. I definitely made this too big.
And then my mic cut out again, but I was basically explaining that I do really like the size of this. I like that it accommodates a range of poses for me. I can really curl up on it if I want to, which is really nice. So on that note, everything is done, and it is time for a reveal.
Hello there, and welcome to the end of the video. They're all so loud. I'm so sorry about the audio in this video. So let's do a quick assessment of how much stash busting I actually did over the past month. For my remaining fabrics, period. I have this bin back in here that is all uncut new fabric. It's not totally full though. I've got this bin of mock-up fabric and like weird irregular scraps. I've got this bin of like kind of translucent stuff. Really not a whole lot going on in here anymore. And finally, this is all I have left of fabric that I've cut into besides what is currently in my cushion. But I mean, check that out. That is really not much, especially compared to what I started out with, which was kind of a nightmare. Oh, and I also have this, which I bought at the thrift store the other day as a treat, because I think I can buy a couple new fabrics now. I'm gonna be a lot choosier than I used to be though. I'm overall very proud of all the stash busting that I did this month. It was much needed. It's been stressing me out for like literally years now. And now I have a bunch of projects under my belt that I can do again when I inevitably run into this problem in the future. This is just the life of someone who makes stuff. Let's talk about the things that I made in this video. Overall, I'm very happy with everything. I would probably say this pillowcase is probably the thing that I am most happy with. Absolutely love it. I'm also a huge fan of my little moth embroidery. I think it turned out so cute. It's definitely novice work, and I kind of messed up the shape of the pillow itself. I don't care. I think it's adorable. I'm excited to do more embroidery in the future now that I know a little bit more what I'm doing. I am very happy with all these fellas. As you guys probably noticed, did not have time to fix this sword. It still looks so rough. I'm absolutely going to fix this before I hand it off to my partner because I will not stand for this. Finally, my cushion. I think I made it a little bit too big. I'm gonna just sort of call that a happy accident because I really do like the size and girth of this. I just don't know exactly where I'm going to like store it, but I'm not using it. Also, obviously, for this video, it's fine, but I definitely want to stuff it a little bit more. So that's something I want to change in the future. It has a zipper, so that's easy enough to do. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this saga, and if you don't know what I mean by saga, I've made 2 other videos this month where I'm doing similar stash busting activities. I'll put a link to that in the description, like a playlist. They're both almost an hour long. So, if you're into that sort of thing. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Like the video if you like the video. Tell it it's pretty. And if you want to drop a subscribe, oh baby, we're about to get all the way into spooky season content. And I am up to some things this year. Frankly, the things I'm up to scare me. But that is incoming next month. And if you want to see what I'm up to earlier than I put it out on the channel, I do have a Patreon where I'm going to be dropping all the juicy little details of those projects behind the scenes. Again, link below. Thank you so much for watching. I've had so much fun working on all this stuff this month, so I'm glad everyone has been enjoying the videos as much as they have. But as always, the biggest thank you for this video, and every single one of my videos, goes to my patrons, and especially my executive producers.
Cinderus, Speak of the Devil, Tiro2, Donna Shipley, Mystic, Danielle Bergner, Scribble, Jazz the Bat, Mushroom Sita, Ghastly, Galaxy Stardust 035, Luxabar, My Name is A, Becca, Nilo Nam, Cyrus Orion, Jenny Craftsma, I Do TKD, Ren, Bandoff the Yellow, Cloud Max, Villy Smelly, Stabby Horse, Heebie Jeebies, Cardia X, Christina Cantia Art, Fiasco, Mossy Raven, Silver, 2 Prism, I'm not saying that name on the internet, ABW Makes, Ice Kavan, A Wendu, Liana, Ermler Jean, Phoenix, PNG Not Found, Freedom and Gus Gus, Dodo, Zyle S, Agent Sketchy, Thea Maia, Lovisa, Eloquent Silence, Sushi McNushi, Hypnos, Katie, Sweet Winter Garden, Gravity Drop, I Hang Out with Cats at Parties, and Bean the Bread.
Oh, and of course, I'm doing another big Halloween project this year. And if you want to know what it is, you could look on the Patreon. But I also have been dropping hints in most of the videos that I've put out this year. There's something that just keeps consistently coming up. You know, you could get a hint as to what the project is from. If I sent at least one person on a wild goose chase to try to figure out what exactly I'm talking about, I'll have done my job. Okay, bye.